Hey there, it's Sam Fleck here once again. What's up guys? And it's FreezeControl. So there's this topic going around for a long time now. It's addiction, and today I'm here to talk about the science of addiction. Now before we move straight into the topic, let's know what actually is addiction. What is the primary definition of addiction? And here's what Wikipedia has got for us. Addiction is a brain disorder. What? A brain disorder? I'm sure you didn't think of it as something that serious. A brain disorder. Addiction is a brain disorder characterized by compulsive engagement in rewarding stimuli despite adverse consequences. Despite the involvement of a number of psychosocial factors, a biological process, one that is induced by repeated exposure to an addictive stimulus, is a core pathology that drives the development and maintenance of an addiction. Now, the word addiction is derived from a Latin term that means enslaved by or bound to. So if you have ever been addicted to something and you got yourself out of it, or you have helped someone get out of an addiction, then you understand why the Latin term for addiction means enslaved by or bound to something. Now, before we go on, it's actually important for us to set the difference between having passion for something or loving to do something and actually being addicted to something. You understand from the definition that addiction is actually a damage to the brain. It's a brain disease. So if I love to do something or if I have passion for something, it does not mean my brain is actually damaged. As we go on in the video, you understand the difference between having passion for something or loving to do something very, very well, or being addicted to something. It's important to understand the fact that addiction, there's a lot of different stereotypes about addiction, and addicts are actually normal human beings. They have families, they have rich relationships with people they love, they hold jobs, they are just normal people in our society. For this reason, it's important for us to understand the misconceptions about addiction. The first misconception I'm bringing to you today is that a lot of people think addicts are mostly men. So when you think of addiction or people that are addicted to something, what comes to mind first might be men or the male gender. And that is probably very, very wrong. Of course, it's true. Men are most likely to be the one that are addicted to substance or addicted to drugs or anything, but a large percentage of the female gender also are addicted to something. In fact, between the years of 1999 and 2010, the percentage of women that are addicted to painkillers actually rose over 400%. Now, the second misconception I'm bringing to you today is very funny. Some people believe once you're an addict, you will always be an addict. Like you can't ever get yourself out of an addiction. There's probably nothing farther from the truth than this. Mind you, with the right treatment and the right recovery processes, a person can actually get themselves out of addiction. Although the more time people spend in addictive behaviors could actually make recovery a lot more harder. Finally, on the misconceptions, one of the popular ones is that people actually believe addicts lack willpower, that they can't say no. Come to think of it this way, addiction actually can be a form of pain management in the sense that people engage themselves in addictive behaviors in order to numb some kind of pains. Well, I'll get to that in a short while. Let's say you have a physical pain somewhere in your body. You walk up to a doctor and the doctor performs a series of tests and comes up with the result of why you are actually having that pain. They give you a remedy to actually solve the problem. But now, understanding psychological or emotional pain can actually be a lot harder. That's why it's so interconnected with addiction, in the sense that people who have emotional or psychological pains, which they can't really find a cause or they can't really say this is why, find themselves in addictive behaviors that seem like they're actually helping the pain or numbing the pain. Now, it's important to understand the fact that these misconceptions are actually carried about by addicts and non-addicts. Now, quickly, let's move into the views of science about addiction, the biological, the biochemical, and the psychological explanation of addiction. Now, coming to the biology of addiction, the first one we're going to be talking about today. Scientists believe addiction is actually a long-lasting, complex disease of the brain. And more importantly, even if people successfully get themselves out of addiction, there's always a high risk of the addiction returning, called relapse. Now, the biological basis of addiction helps us understand the fact that it's not just about wanting to stop or just saying no. The brain actually changes with addiction, and it's a deal of work to actually actually get the brain back to its normal state. Researchers have actually found that the power in addiction lies in the fact that it's able to hijack some key and important parts of the brain. A healthy brain actually rewards you when you eat what you like, when you exercise, when you spend time with loved ones. I talked about this in the last video where I talked about dopamine. In contrast, when you're in danger, the brain helps you to pull yourself as quickly as possible from harm. When I said addictive behaviors or substances actually hijack key parts of the brain, this is what I mean. They hijack the key parts of the brain in the sense that when you're not using these drugs, using these substances, they send some messages down to your body, making you feel stressed, making you feel scared, making you feel tensed, that you need to actually perform this behavior. And most importantly, people actually that are addicts for a long period of time perform the behaviors or use drug or take alcohol just for them not to feel that stress or pain or anything. It's not to get the pleasurable effect anymore. It's because they don't want to feel the pain. Now, the biochemistry of addiction is very broad and is very complex. But one of the simple and most important part of biochemistry of addiction is neuroadaptation. And I'm going to explain that now. Neuroadaptation comes in play when new chemicals or new substances are taken into the body. Neuroadaptation explains it that the brain actually adapts or changes its way of life or pattern of doing things to accept that chemical into the society of the body, in the sense that when the chemicals are taken into the body over a long period of time, the body considers those chemicals as a part of their life. I'm moving to the last science or view of science of addiction. This is the psychology of addiction, and here it's a little bit different. The psychology of addiction, the basis of everything is that there is actually an emotional stress or there's a problem underlying that causes the addictive behaviors, in the sense that a person is going through a particular pain, a psychological pain or an emotional pain, which causes the person to actually engage in some behaviors or take some substances in order to actually numb the pain. After about 3 weeks of study and everything I learned, I came up with a particular theory. I came up with a connection between these three sciences of addiction. And here is it. It starts with psychology, and then we move to biochemistry, and then eventually the biology. When a person undergoes an emotional stress or hurt from a loved person, this person indulges him or herself in some addictive behaviors or taking of substances like alcohol or drugs, primarily to actually numb the effect of the emotional or psychological pain. Now, taking in these chemicals, we now come to neuroadaptation. The body now adapts to this new chemical that is inside the body, in the sense that these chemicals actually now hijack some important parts of the brain and affect the whole body. So when a person is actually being addicted to something, or when a person gets addicted to something, three processes have already taken place. It starts from when the pain was actually caused, the emotional stress, and then the person goes to take in chemicals or addictive behaviors. That's the biochemistry part, and then eventually it causes harm to the brain and makes the person believe this is the only way out of this pain. That's the biological explanation. Now, coming to this survey, I had over 100 responses from the survey, and here's the statistics from that. From the first question, about 79.7% of people believe that you don't get addicted to only bad things. So it's possible you get addicted to something that is actually good, not just bad. The next question, about 81% of the people that answered this survey have been addicted to something. Yeah, that's how bad it is. Finally, 66.2% of people believe addiction can bring benefits. Well, I think I've answered that in the old video already. There's a difference between passion and loving to do something and being addicted to something. So that's all for today. If you love the video, make sure you strike the like button and make sure you hit the subscribe button too. And make sure you share to your friends so that we all learn about addiction. And that's pretty much it. Catch you guys on the next one. Peace.